Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope everybody is having a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much for coming back. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button below and subscribe to this channel. This channel is all about my life, the stuff I've been through, the stuff I'm experiencing, all about Jesus, and just me passing on my knowledge to others. And some of it's going to have personal stories in it about stuff I've been through, and this is one of those videos. This is a personal story of something I have went through. It's going to be all about going into labor at 24 weeks and what that was like, because it was one of the most hardest times of my life, but it was also one of the times that set me up for what the person I am today. It helped me be me. The trials in our life helps us to become, who we're supposed to be. So my pregnancy was phenomenal. I didn't have any indications that anything was going to happen. She was growing perfect. Everything was going great. I do have to see a specialist every time I get pregnant because I'm on seizure medication and they just want to monitor me and the baby closely. Sorry. But other than that, nothing was wrong. So on a Tuesday, I went to my specialist and everything was perfect. I did an ultrasound. I get an ultrasound every month. Everything was absolutely phenomenal. Then that Friday, I got up and I noticed my mucus plug was in my pajama pants, and I totally freaked out. I was like, this is not normal. Something is wrong. So I called my husband and he came and he picked me up and he took me to the hospital. And they did their test and they just basically told me I was not having active contractions, that sometimes you can lose part of your mucus plug, but that it'll regenerate and that everything's going to be okay. So I was like, okay. And in the back of my head, I wanted to believe that they were right, but I still felt something was kind of off. That had never happened to me before. But we went home, I rested, and then my mother-in-law was going to take me to get baby shower invitations. We were going to make them at Walmart in the little computer thing where you plug your phone in and you can download your own pictures and stuff. And while I was standing there, I got super, super sick. Like, I almost passed out. It was horrible. So I got my mother-in-law to take me back home and I rested. And then I got to feeling good again. That feeling went away. And I ended up going grocery shopping and everything was okay. I took a bath that night while I was laying back in the bathtub. It was the first time that I ever seen her move in my belly like that. It was just an amazing experience. So when I got home, or after my bath, me and my husband went to bed around 10. Around 12, I felt a gush of warm liquid and I knew I hadn't peed myself. So I rolled over and I woke up my husband and I was like, babe, I think my water broke. And I was super calm to the fact I don't think it had sunk in what happened to me. So my mother-in-law was living in the back of our house at that time. So I ran back there and I told her, my water just broke. And I just remember sitting down in my bedroom floor feeling completely defeated, feeling like, this is over. My pregnancy is over. There's nothing I can do. And my husband was just hurrying up, throwing on clothes. And I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, dude, your water broke. We've got to go to the hospital. And that's when it finally hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go to the hospital. So we get to the hospital. They did all the tests. My water had broke. I was 22 weeks and 6 days pregnant. And they told me that at that hospital, if I did not make it until 24 weeks, the baby was not deemed viable. That there would be nothing they could do. That basically she wasn't worth saving if she wasn't 24 weeks. So God is good all the time. And I had to stay at that hospital until I had her. And on the night I turned 24 weeks, I turned 24 weeks at 12 a.m. At 1 a.m., I started having active contractions 2 minutes apart. They rushed me back for an emergency C-section, and the C-section was absolutely horrible. The baby was breeched, which means she was butt down, and they said that if she came out naturally, that it could cut her airflow off and she may not be able to breathe and she could die during birth. So at that point, I was just like, cut me open, do what you got to do, get my baby out alive. So I had an emergency C-section, like I said, and the nurses even said like I had the worst C-section ever because I was screaming and puking the entire time. It was horrible. And then afterwards, they asked my husband to come around and see the baby. And it was so hard because there was no sound. It was an absolute, you could hear a pin drop in that operating room. She wasn't crying. She was born she couldn't breathe. She was born moving, so they actually had to sedate her to be able to put the breathing tube down her throat. But when my husband walked around that table to look at the baby and he came back, I knew it wasn't good because he did not have that proud dad moment look. He had a look of pure just scaredness, pure terrifyingness. Just, it wasn't a happy look. So the doctor came up to talk to me at my head, and I was like, I'm not comprehending anything you're telling me right now. All I want to know is my baby alive. Like, that's all I want to know. I don't want to know no details, nothing. I just want to know, is she alive? And he said, she's stable at the moment. We're bringing her down to the NICU. And I was like, okay, that's all I want to know. And, the doctor came in and talked to us, and he's like, even if she does survive, she only has a 20% chance of survival. And then if she survives, she's more than likely going to be mentally retarded. She may never be able to walk, talk, see, or anything because she was born so early. 1 pound, 6 ounces, 12 inches long. And I will post a picture up in the corner here of when she was born. Her eyes were fused shut. You could barely see, you could see through her. And it was absolutely horrible. And I didn't get to see her for the first 12 hours of her life. She was in the NICU. And all our friends that came and visited us, all our family members, they all got to see her, but I did not. And I told my husband, I was like, you've got to help me get down in the chair to go to the NICU to be able to see her. And he's like, you really need to prepare yourself for what you're about to see, because what you're about to see is it's not a normal baby. She's got tubes and wires all over her. And I heard what he was saying, but I don't think it actually sunk in until I got to the NICU, and I was like, I just broke down. Like, I almost collapsed. From the pain, and then from just the shock of, like, actually seeing what he was talking about. My baby had a tube down her throat, breathing for her. She was hooked up to all kind of medications, all kind of wires, monitors. It was really, really hard to see. She was in the NICU for 108 days the first time. And she came home on oxygen. It was the last week in November. She came home on oxygen and a monitor to determine where if she was still breathing and her heart rate and everything. And she was 4 pounds at the time. The first 2 days that she was home, I noticed she was having a really hard time eating her bottles, and she couldn't. She was having a hard time eating her bottles, and her heart rate was dropping. So when I took her back to the hospital, they told me she was aspirating, which means instead of going into her lungs or into her stomach, it was going into her lungs, and it was causing her not to be able to breathe, which was causing her heart rate to drop. So let me back up a little bit. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So when we were at the first hospital, we went through, the NICU is a complete roller coaster ride. The first night of her life, her potassium level dropped, which made her heart, or her potassium level got too high or too low. I don't remember which one, but it caused her heart rate to drop really low. And then a couple of days after birth, the doctor come and told us that she has not urinated since she was born, and that this is a big sign that her kidneys are not working. And they told us, I don't know what you believe in, but whatever you believe in, you need to start praying immediately, because if her kidneys are not working, there's nothing we can do for her. And we were not in church at the time. I had always believed in God, but I did not have as close of a relationship as I do now. But me and my mom, we just started praying, and we went up there the next morning, and it was such a miracle. The doctor's like, you prayed last night, didn't you? And I was like, yes, sir, I did. And he said that baby peed all night long. It was like one of the many miracles that we encountered. She had to be tested for brain bleeds. It goes, the brain bleeds goes from grade 1 to grade 4. Grade 1 and 2 can heal on their own, and grade 3 and 4 require surgery. She had a grade 2. So her brain bleed healed on her own and didn't cause her any brain problems, any mental issues or anything like that. Her heart, they prepared us that most babies were born with a PDA, an open PDA, which is a hole in the middle of their heart that is supposed to, I guess, bring both sides of the heart together. And they said that most babies are born with a hole. So they said it just determines if it's small, it can heal on its own, or if it's big, they're going to have to go in and do surgery. So after they did the test, they called me at home. They're like, ma'am, I don't know what happened, but somehow, some way, your baby's hole is not there. It healed on its own. There's no hole whatsoever. And I was like, that's God. It was another miracle. Her doctors, her neonatologists, were absolutely some of the most bravest and amazing men on this earth to deal with me, for one, because I had 50,000 questions every single day, and a lot of them were the same questions. They just weren't giving me the answers I wanted to hear. But the way that they take care of those babies, it was just phenomenal. So she came home the last week in November. The first time we brought her back to the hospital to find out she was aspirating. That time she had to have an NG tube placed down her nose into her stomach, and we actually had to learn to do that. We had to learn to measure the tube, put it down her nose, listen to her stomach, make sure it was in the right place. That way we could take her home, and we had to feed her that way for the first 8 months of her life. Well, 5 months, because she was home for 5 months, but she was 8 months old at the time. And I pumped the entire time. I was determined this baby was going to get my breast milk. She got my breast milk the whole time she was in the NICU. She never had any formula, which is not a bad thing. I'm not condemning formula at all, but they just told me that because she was so early, my breast milk could really help save her life because of the antibodies and stuff it had in it. And I was determined that since I couldn't physically take care of her, I was going to do that for her. So I pumped continuously, and it was so hard. When she came home, she wasn't able to be consoled like a normal baby because of we couldn't just stick a bottle in her mouth. She had tubes in her nose. She had the tube in her nose, and she continuously in the middle of the night would pull the tube out of her nose. So I'd have to wake up in the middle of the night, and instead of fixing the baby the bottle, I would have to re-put the tube down her nose. So it was very, very hard, and she had to pass a swallow study to be able to get the tube out of her nose. She finally passed it when she was 8 months old, and I think that was the most amazing accomplishment. Like, I felt like a building got off my chest when she passed that, and I was finally able to breastfeed her. All that pumping I had done paid off. That girl, she breastfed till she was 2.5, though. She loved it. But it was amazing. But the NICU journey is insane. You can have good weeks, good days, good hours, and then sometimes it's hour to hour, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. It's literally a roller coaster. Like, it's A lot of times the nurses, they won't give you direct answers because they can tell you your baby's doing fine, and then 10 seconds later the baby codes. Like, it's insane. The NICU journey is one of the hardest things that I have ever had to go through in my entire life, and hers lasted 108 days, and it was horrendous. But she has no medical issues, no mental issues. Her eyes are fine. She can walk, she can talk. And I actually have a video of her talking at the end of this video, and I asked her to tell y'all what she knew about her birth and what she thought about it, because we tell her how much of a miracle she is. We tell her what happened, that she was born early. We don't keep that stuff from her. So I will let her tell that to y'all now. Bye guys, thanks for watching.
So what it makes me feel born early is pretty sad, because when I was a baby, I was sick because I was born too early. And how I like being born is I feel pretty good about being born, because if I didn't, then I just will be real weird, and like I would just be like missing everyone, and like I wouldn't know who's gonna be my parents or anything. But guess what, you guys? God will take care of you in heaven. So bye bye guys.